The gasoline you bought this morning, the medicine in your cabinet, the search engine you used before lunch, the online store you ordered from yesterday. Every single one exists because a 31-year-old bookkeeper in Cleveland, Ohio, figured out something in 1870 that changed capitalism forever. John D. Rockefeller didn't just build an oil company. He engineered a system for consolidating power so effective, so replicable, so embedded in corporate law, that 155 years later, you still live inside it. Standard Oil was broken up in 1911. The monopoly was destroyed, competition restored, justice served. Except Rockefeller's wealth tripled after the breakup. The companies that replaced Standard Oil are now worth more combined than the original ever was. And the methods he pioneered, the structures he created, the tactics he perfected, they didn't disappear. They evolved into the operating system of modern corporate America. You cannot buy gasoline outside the descendants of Standard Oil. You cannot avoid Amazon's infrastructure. You cannot opt out of pharmaceutical systems shaped by Rockefeller's foundations. The system isn't hiding. It's so pervasive, you mistake it for normal. Here's what actually happened, and why it matters more now than ever. Rockefeller was born in 1839 in upstate New York. His father was a con artist selling fake cancer cures. His mother was a devout Baptist who drilled discipline and moral certainty into him. That combination, the conman's ruthlessness wrapped in religious conviction, would define everything Rockefeller built. He genuinely believed God chose him to organize industry, not for profit alone, but for order, for efficiency, to eliminate the waste of competition and deliver products to people at the lowest possible cost. In 1859, oil was discovered in Pennsylvania. Thousands rushed in to drill. Boom and bust cycles destroyed fortunes overnight. Prices spiked and crashed. It was chaos, and chaos offended Rockefeller's sense of order. But he didn't rush to drill. Drilling was gambling. Rockefeller saw opportunity in refining, the process of turning crude oil into kerosene for lamps. That was the real business. Stable, predictable, controllable. By 1863, he'd invested $4,000 in his first refinery in Cleveland. Within 2 years, it was the largest in the city. But Cleveland had 30 refineries. Competition was brutal. Margins were thin. Most refineries operated on the edge of bankruptcy. Rockefeller looked at this landscape and decided competition itself was the problem, not a feature of markets, a flaw. So he set out to eliminate it. Most refineries controlled one step of the process. They bought crude, refined it, sold kerosene. Rockefeller decided to control every step. He bought the companies that made barrels. While competitors paid $2.50 per barrel, Rockefeller made his own for 96 cents. He bought tank cars and warehouses. He negotiated secret deals with railroads, not just for lower rates, but for rebates. The railroads paid him to ship his oil and charged his competitors more. This is vertical integration, controlling the entire supply chain from raw material to final customer. Every cost that used to go to someone else now stayed inside Rockefeller's system. His cost to produce a gallon of kerosene dropped far below what any competitor could match, and that gave him a weapon nobody else had. He could sell kerosene below cost and still survive. In 1870, Rockefeller founded Standard Oil Company of Ohio. His refining capacity had exploded, but he still only controlled 4% of American refining. That wasn't enough, not even close. So in 1872, Rockefeller launched what historians call the Cleveland Massacre. Over 3 months, he approached every refinery owner in Cleveland with an offer. Sell to me at a fair price, or I'll destroy you. Some sold immediately. Others refused. Rockefeller dropped kerosene prices below production costs. His competitors bled money on every sale. They couldn't outlast him. They had 2 choices: sell or go bankrupt. Most sold. A few fought. They all lost. By the end of 1872, Rockefeller controlled 25 of Cleveland's 26 refineries. He'd gone from 4% to 25% of American refining in 90 days. This is horizontal integration, not just competing in a market, but systematically eliminating the market itself. And Cleveland was just the beginning. Through the 1870s, Rockefeller expanded across America. Same tactics everywhere. Secret railroad rebates that undercut competitors' shipping costs. Vertical integration that crushed their production costs. Price wars that eliminated anyone who refused to sell. By 1879, Standard Oil controlled 90% of American refining. Not dominance, total control. But Rockefeller understood something most monopolists miss. Monopolies create two problems. First, they're illegal, or they would be once governments caught up. Second, they're hated. The public despised Rockefeller. He was called a robber baron, a tyrant, the most hated man in America. He needed a solution that addressed both problems simultaneously. In 1882, his lawyers created the Standard Oil Trust. State laws prevented Ohio companies from owning businesses in other states. But a trust could. Rockefeller created a legal entity that held the stock of all Standard Oil companies. 41 shareholders, all Rockefeller and his inner circle, controlled the trust. The trust controlled the companies. Technically legal. Practically a nationwide monopoly operating under one centralized command. This was the first major corporate trust in American history. It became the template for every trust that followed. Sugar Trust, Tobacco Trust, Steel Trust. Every industry copied Rockefeller's structure. More importantly, the trust evolved into the modern holding company. A parent entity that doesn't produce anything, just owns other companies. Berkshire Hathaway, Alphabet, Meta. They're all descendants of the structure Rockefeller's lawyers invented in 1882. By 1904, Standard Oil controlled 91% of American oil refining and 85% of final sales. Rockefeller's net worth hit $900 million, roughly $400 billion in today's dollars. Richer than Bezos, Musk, and Gates combined. The richest individual in modern history. But the public was turning. In 1890, Congress passed the Sherman Antitrust Act, making monopolies illegal. In 1902, journalist Ida Tarbell began publishing a 19-part exposé on Standard Oil's tactics in McClure's magazine. Her father's oil business had been destroyed by Rockefeller. Her investigation was personal, detailed, and devastating. Secret railroad rebates, predatory pricing, crushing competitors one by one. Tarbell's series exposed it all in meticulous detail, with documents, testimony, and interviews from Standard Oil insiders. The public outcry was deafening. In 1906, Theodore Roosevelt's administration filed suit under the Sherman Antitrust Act. Standard Oil was conspiring to restrain trade. The case dragged through courts for 5 years. Rockefeller didn't testify. He'd already stepped back from daily operations, though he still held a quarter of all Standard Oil shares. On May 15, 1911, the Supreme Court ruled. Standard Oil was an illegal monopoly. It had to be broken up into 34 separate companies. The largest pieces became Standard Oil of New Jersey, which later became Exxon. Standard Oil of New York became Mobil. Standard Oil of California became Chevron. Standard Oil of Indiana became Amoco. The empire was officially dismantled. This should have destroyed Rockefeller. Instead, it made him richer. Before the breakup, Standard Oil stock traded around $600 per share. After the breakup, the combined value of all 34 companies exceeded $2,000 per share. Rockefeller owned 25% of each company. His wealth didn't just survive the breakup, it tripled, from $300 million to $900 million almost overnight. Why? Because forced competition actually drove efficiency. Each company, now independent, had to innovate and grow. Regional monopolies became leaner, stock values surged, and Rockefeller, who owned pieces of every successor company, captured all the gains. The breakup also revealed something the government hadn't anticipated. You can shatter the company, but the structure remains. Each of those 34 companies still dominated their regional markets. They still used vertical integration. They still crushed local competitors. The monopoly had simply been divided into 34 smaller monopolies, all using the same playbook. And over the next century, they quietly reconsolidated. Exxon and Mobil merged in 1999. Chevron absorbed multiple Standard Oil descendants. BP bought Amoco. The empire that was broken up in 1911 has essentially reformed itself through modern mergers. Different names, same control. But Standard Oil isn't Rockefeller's most important legacy. The real legacy is what happened after the breakup, when other industries realized the system worked better than the company. The methods don't die when the monopoly breaks. They spread. Take Amazon. It started as an online bookstore. Today, it controls logistics, warehousing, cloud computing, payment processing, and retail. It owns the infrastructure that hosts competitors' websites through Amazon Web Services. AWS alone generates $90 billion annually, more than Amazon's retail division. That's vertical integration. Control the supply chain, the distribution, the platform, and the technology layer beneath it all. Rockefeller controlled refineries, railroads, and barrels. Amazon controls servers, warehouses, and delivery networks. Same structure, different century. Amazon also uses horizontal consolidation. Over 100 acquisitions. Whole Foods, Zappos, Ring, Twitch. When it can't buy competitors, it replicates their products using marketplace data. Third-party sellers report sales through Amazon's platform. Amazon identifies successful products, creates Amazon Basics versions, and promotes them above the originals. Rockefeller offered to buy or launched price wars. Amazon offers to acquire or launches product clones. The mechanism has been updated. The strategy hasn't. Google operates as Alphabet, a holding company that owns Google, YouTube, Waymo, DeepMind, Verily, and dozens of subsidiaries. One parent entity. Multiple operating companies, legally separate, strategically unified. That's the trust structure Rockefeller's lawyers invented in 1882. It shields the parent from liability. It allows tax optimization across jurisdictions. It makes regulatory breakup complicated because each subsidiary is technically independent. When regulators target one piece, the others remain untouched. Pharmaceutical companies captured Rockefeller's regulatory strategy. He didn't just compete in markets. He shaped the rules. He lobbied for railroad regulations that favored Standard Oil. He worked with politicians to set kerosene quality standards his refineries could meet, but competitors couldn't. Modern pharmaceutical companies do the same. They fund the FDA through user fees. They lobby for patent extensions. They write the regulations they're supposedly regulated by. Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Merck. They learned from Rockefeller. Control the regulators, control the market. Financial institutions use holding company structures. JP Morgan Chase is a holding company that owns Chase Bank, JP Morgan Investment Bank, and numerous subsidiaries. Bank of America, Citigroup, Wells Fargo. All holding companies. When Dodd-Frank tried to regulate banks after 2008, the structure made enforcement nearly impossible. Which entity do you regulate? The parent or the subsidiaries? Rockefeller solved this problem in 1882. Banks copied the solution 130 years later. Then there's philanthropy, Rockefeller's final and most enduring innovation. In 1913, Rockefeller created the Rockefeller Foundation with an initial gift of $250 million, over $7 billion in today's dollars. The foundation funded medical research, education, Public health. On the surface, pure charity. Rockefeller giving back. Look closer. The foundation allowed Rockefeller to avoid estate taxes. It gave him control over university funding, which meant control over curricular and research priorities. It bought legitimacy. The most hated man in America became a beloved philanthropist. The Rockefeller Foundation funded the creation of modern medical education. It funded Johns Hopkins, University of Chicago, Rockefeller University. It established standards for medical schools that emphasized pharmaceutical interventions over holistic care. This isn't speculation. It's documented. The foundation shaped American medicine to favor pharmaceutical models. Pharmaceutical companies, many descended from Standard Oil's chemical divisions, profited enormously. Today, every billionaire follows the playbook. Bill Gates founded the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. $75 billion in assets. It funds global health, shapes WHO policy, influences governments. Mark Zuckerberg created the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. Warren Buffett pledged most of his wealth to the Gates Foundation. These aren't just charity. They're tax avoidance, legacy building, and policy influence. Rockefeller invented the model 110 years ago. Modern billionaires perfected it. The Rockefeller family still exists. David Rockefeller, John D's grandson, died in 2017 at 101. He was chairman of Chase Manhattan Bank, founder of the Trilateral Commission, one of the most powerful men in global finance for half a century. The family wealth, estimated at $11 billion, is spread across hundreds of trusts and foundations. They still fund research, shape policy, influence politics. 150 years after John D. started Standard Oil. The system doesn't require Rockefeller anymore. It runs itself. Here's what most people don't understand about the system you're trapped in. It's not designed to be escaped. It's designed to be invisible until you're already inside it. You need gasoline. You have options. Exxon, Chevron, BP, Shell. All price-coordinated oligopolies descended from Standard Oil or copying its methods. You're not choosing. You're selecting branches of the same tree. You need products. Amazon, Walmart, Target. Amazon dominates through vertical integration. Walmart and Target must match its scale or die. Different logos, same system. You need internet search. Google holds 92% market share, higher than Standard Oil's peak of 90%. But regulators don't call it a monopoly because it's free. You pay with data instead of dollars. Rockefeller would have loved this innovation. A monopoly so complete users don't realize they're paying. You need social media. Facebook has 3 billion users. Instagram? Also Facebook. WhatsApp? Also Facebook. You're not choosing platforms. You're choosing which meta property to use. Horizontal consolidation, exactly like Rockefeller designed in 1872. You need healthcare. You see doctors trained in systems shaped by Rockefeller Foundation grants. You receive pharmaceuticals developed by companies using patent structures and regulations pioneered by Standard Oil's chemical divisions. You pay insurance companies using Rockefeller's corporate structures. Every step, extraction. Every choice, an illusion. The average American spends thousands annually on gasoline, Amazon purchases, healthcare beyond insurance, internet, and technology services. Over a lifetime, hundreds of thousands of dollars flowing to corporations using 150-year-old tactics to eliminate competition and extract maximum profit. And you cannot escape it. You could refuse gasoline, but you need transportation for work. You could refuse Amazon, but competitive pricing makes avoidance nearly impossible. You could refuse Google, but what alternative has that reach? You could refuse Facebook, but social connection is controlled by Meta's platforms. You could refuse pharmaceutical medicine, but medical licensing, insurance coverage, and cultural acceptance are all shaped by the Rockefeller system. This is Rockefeller's ultimate achievement. Not becoming the richest man in history, building a system that makes escape impossible. A system where every path leads back to consolidated corporate control, where competition is crushed before it threatens dominant players, where regulators protect incumbents instead of consumers, where philanthropy buys influence that perpetuates the system. But here's what Rockefeller understood that most people miss. The system isn't evil, it's efficient. Vertical integration reduces costs. Horizontal consolidation eliminates wasteful competition. Regulatory capture provides stability. Foundations fund genuine research. The system works. It delivers products cheaper, faster, more reliably than chaotic markets. Standard Oil made kerosene affordable for average Americans. Before Standard Oil, kerosene cost 58 cents per gallon. After Standard Oil's efficiencies, 8 cents per gallon. An 86% price reduction. That's not exploitation, that's efficiency. Amazon delivers products in 2 days. Google answers questions in seconds. ExxonMobil produces gasoline at scale. Pfizer develops life-saving drugs. The system delivers value. The problem isn't that it doesn't work. The problem is that it concentrates wealth at the top, while delivering efficiency at the bottom. You get cheap gasoline, fast shipping, instant information, effective medicine. Rockefeller's heirs get trillions in accumulated wealth. Both things are true. So what do you do? How do you respond to a system you cannot escape? 3 options. Accept it. Understand that consolidation and monopoly are features of advanced capitalism, not bugs. Use the efficiencies they provide. Buy from Amazon. Use Google. Accept that wealth will concentrate. Resist it. Support antitrust enforcement. Buy from small businesses even when it costs more. Use alternatives even when they're inferior. Vote for politicians who promise to break up monopolies. Make the system less efficient in exchange for less consolidation. Understand it and position accordingly. If you cannot escape the system, benefit from it. Own stock in the companies that dominate. Exxon, Chevron, Amazon, Google, Pfizer, JP Morgan. If the system extracts wealth from everyone and concentrates it in these companies, own these companies. This is what Rockefeller did. He owned Standard Oil while everyone else bought its products. He extracted wealth from the system he built. You can do the same, not at his scale, but proportionally. Own the extractors instead of being extracted from. The Rockefeller system has concentrated wealth for 150 years. It will continue concentrating wealth because it's embedded in corporate law, tax code, and regulatory structures. Fighting it is noble but exhausting. Escaping it is impossible. Understanding it and positioning within it is pragmatic. John D. Rockefeller died in 1937 at age 97. He lived long enough to see Standard Oil broken up, reconsolidate, and spread its methods across every industry. He lived long enough to see his foundation reshape American medicine and education. He lived long enough to see his grandchildren positioned at the top of American finance and industry. He built a system that outlived him by a century and will outlive us all. The system is vertical integration, horizontal consolidation, corporate trusts, regulatory capture, and philanthropic influence. It started with Standard Oil. It spread to steel, railroads, sugar, tobacco, then automobiles, electronics, pharmaceuticals, technology. Now it dominates every sector of the economy, and you cannot escape it. You can only understand it. Rockefeller said competition is a sin. Most people hear greed, but Rockefeller meant it theologically. Competition is wasteful. It duplicates effort. It destroys capital. Consolidation is righteous. It creates efficiency. It serves consumers through lower prices. Monopoly isn't theft. It's the natural end state of efficient markets. This was Rockefeller's worldview, and he built a system to enforce it. 150 years later, we live in that system. You cannot escape the Rockefeller system, but you can see it, and seeing it changes everything. John D. Rockefeller created a system you cannot escape: vertical integration, horizontal consolidation, corporate trusts, regulatory capture, philanthropic influence. That system is the modern economy, and you live in it every single day. Welcome to Rockefeller's world.